Hello and welcome to our Contributor Corner. I'm Lyndsay Malchuk, and joining me today is Michael Succurro. And Michael and I sit regular to chat all things stock market, from real estate to interest rate cuts. And today we are jumping over to the great crypto surge happening. And joining us in this conversation today is Adam O'Brien, founder and CEO of Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is a non-custodial fintech company with a primary focus on empowering people to interact directly with the Bitcoin protocol. So welcome, Adam. Great to have you sit with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Looking forward to a good chat.
Let's jump right into all of this. So the great crypto surge, it's happening. It's finally happening. So this asset class has been creeping upward for some time with a lot of volatility around it. And then the US election happened and boom, the surge cannonball happened. So this election, it's been called a lot of things. It's been called inflation, immigration, peacocking, that no one really knows what's happening election. And I think you could safely call this the crypto election. What are your both thoughts?
Yeah, I think absolutely having the Trump administration has been pro-Bitcoin for a very long time. I got to watch Trump and RFK speak in Nashville in the summer. They were both, RFK in particular, blew me away with his Bitcoin knowledge, with his commitment to the ethos of what Bitcoin is. Personally, I'm not surprised in the slightest to see this happening. Bitcoin runs on a 4-year, pretty predictable time frame centered around the halving. If you look back throughout history, you can predict this. We can probably tell, within a 10% range where it's going to kind of top out, when it's going to fall, and then it will keep on going. I think that Bitcoin will rise indefinitely, forever, over a long enough period of time, simply because it's a direct inverse to the dollar, and the dollar has no bottom, therefore Bitcoin has no top. It's different from any other asset that we've seen. You mentioned earlier real estate, and how Bitcoin is as hard to get into as real estate, but the benefit is you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. It has all the best parts of all the different asset classes that we've seen over the last, multiple centuries, and it's bundled into one digital protocol that's available to everyone. It's perfect money, and I think that it's going to continue to rise throughout our lifetimes.
Michael, what do you see?
Yeah, I totally agree. And, again, with the Trump administration, like Adam said, it's, fairly predictable, especially the cycles we've been seeing the last little bit with Bitcoin and all cryptocurrency across the board. And it's becoming more and more adopted, even before the Trump administration had gotten in, with our company being out in the US, primarily in Florida. We've actually seen a couple transactions being completed with Bitcoin. So friends of mine in Miami, they actually sold a condo for $22 million USD, but the transaction was completed with Bitcoin. So amazing. It's definitely on the come up. And actually in the mortgage space, again, in the US, Canada's slowly adopting it. We're actually looking at confirming a down payment and proof of your down payment through crypto wallets as well. Right now, we're looking at just Bitcoin, but which is a great step forward, because if you're looking to purchase with any other investment, you just need to show 90-day statement of that investment. So we're actually seeing that for Bitcoin as well, is that if you have a trusted wallet, your usual larger websites, whether it be Coinbase or crypto.com, we can actually use those statements as well to show 90-day history of you owning that Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's super cool. We're actually, on that note, there's a guy in Edmonton right now selling a $3.5 or $4 million house, which, to be clear, is probably about the same as like a $25 to $30 million house in Miami, just given the different jurisdictions. But I just heard my team messaged earlier this week saying that someone wants to sell their house, wants to take the proceeds in Bitcoin, and is looking for our help to kind of facilitate that transaction. So I think it's super cool how we've gone from Bitcoin is only for drug dealers and money launderers all the way to, oh yeah, it's a legitimate asset that you can use to buy a home in less than a decade is pretty crazy.
And that's something that, I was wondering too, is how far forward is this now moving? So, crypto was already making those tidal waves. And then, with this surge, it seemed like Trump then just sort of headed right into the heart of those waves and waved his pick me, choose me on your new leader flag, which, let's be honest, that was a brilliant move. So while 90% of the eyes were all on other areas, Trump kind of quietly pursued a different focus and went right after one of the most volatile yet forward-thinking sectors and the big movers in the crypto sector. And they said, partner with me, let's run this. Let's see where this is going. So, now we're seeing that you're right in real estate. But what other areas is this now sort of creeping into that we would never think would this be a part of?
Yeah, I think that Bitcoin, the reason it feels so sudden and like it will touch literally every single sector in the world is because Bitcoin is a representation of money. And if you think about what money is, it's a representation of our time as human beings. And literally everything that we do touches money in some way, shape, or form. And we've seen a desecration of our financial system over the last, 100 years, but certainly over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think that frankly, the bubble of the US dollar is about to pop, and it's about to, something's going to happen. The way that we've seen real estate rise, the way that we've seen the S&P rise, the way that we've seen alternative assets rise, those things aren't really rising. What's happening is the dollar that they're being represented in is falling, and people are evacuating the dollar at record pace. And when you compare Bitcoin to other alternative assets, it stands up. Even other crypto assets. There is, we've heard Michael Saylor say it, there is no second best. In my opinion, there is no crypto industry. There's the Bitcoin industry and then a pile of grifters that want to attach their name to that. And I think that when we've got perfect money written into a protocol, we can really see the advantages of society. We can see how society is going to look in the future. And it's with a universally fair, universally adopted, and a universally equal monetary system, which is, frankly, completely the opposite of what we have right now.
Yeah, 100%. Michael, what do you think?
Well, I totally agree. And, just speaking on a smaller scale, look at the current banking system we have, especially here in Canada. And you look at, yes, the 80s and 90s, business was very much focused within specific continents. So Canada, the US working together, different European companies working together, and Asian companies working together. Now with the internet, Zoom, all these social media platforms, people are adapting and investing in different parts of the world. And again, going back to our banking system, I'll go with something as simple as e-transfer. That's what interactive e-transfer is only available in Canada. And now the banks have come in so low on that, you're actually only maxed out at $3,000. Then in the US, you have like Venmo, Zelle, and Cash App and whatnot. But if I'm a Canadian and I have an American friend and we're going out to a game or a party, whatever it may be, it's really hard for me to actually send them money. Whereas with cryptocurrency, they have their crypto wallet, I have my crypto wallet, we figure out the conversion rate or just say, hey, yeah, it's going to be, 0.002 of a Bitcoin. I can send it over within a second. Now, even looking on a broader scale internationally, I have a lot of clients that are looking to invest now in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and whatever it may be, as those are emerging markets as well, and try to send the wire there. A lot of these places are sanctioned countries, so the banks here hate having you send it there. I actually have to help a client out. We have to send his money to the US first, then send it over to Dubai. And on top of that, again, it takes 7 to maybe 10 business days to get there. Whereas again, a cryptocurrency, it will be there within an instant. So I just feel like, again, everywhere else in the world is really adapted to this quickly, given to those circumstances, whereas Canada is definitely, taking a slower approach to it. And the US, as we can see with the Trump administration, will have a faster approach to it. But I think it's just the new way of banking.
Yeah, it's
Adam, I wanted to ask you too, like on your end with Bitcoin how is that working with cross-border now?
Yeah, so we basically have 2 completely separate platforms, one in Canada and then one in the USA. And the reason for that is because of what you're talking about, Michael. It's the separation of the monetary system. It is offensive to me that money is locked inside of geographical borders. It is offensive that, what that is basically is the government's telling you, oh, hey, the money that you trade your time for here is not valid elsewhere, or we're going to tax it and take a little bit of it in fees and take a lot of physical time to send it somewhere else. And Bitcoin specifically makes money geographically borderless. If I'm sending money to you and you're right beside me or on the other end of the world, it doesn't matter. I have the ability to use my money how I want. Speaking to the e-transfer, we've seen the dangers of e-transfer. When Rogers Telecom went down, e-transfer was useless for like 3 or 4 days. There's a single point of failure. There's so many single points of failure in this monetary system where people say, oh, how can I trust Bitcoin? How can I trust that it'll be there? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, the Bitcoin network has been running flawlessly for 15 years, and I don't know that the banks have a flawless 15 months without something catastrophic going on. We are seeing TD pay record fines because of money laundering. We're seeing Rogers, going down and causing huge problems with the Interact e-transfer and debit card, credit card system. We're seeing financial censorship at record rates from banks. This system is not here to produce growth. The system is not here to help you as an individual citizen of Canada. It is here to censor you. It is here to limit your ability to use the money that you've worked so hard for. And Bitcoin flips the script. I think it's remarkable. Like I personally don't have the privilege of having a checking account at a bank because of my involvement in the Bitcoin industry. And I think that that's only going to get worse. And thank goodness we have Bitcoin in, again, fair and equal opportunity in the Bitcoin protocol. And that is just like, you can't get better than that.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised right now if crypto continues to propel upward. And I heard there now are talks of creating a super fund backed by the most powerful government in the world right now, and where the government puts the $100 billion into Bitcoin, which could ultimately take that asset to, God knows where, right? So Adam, you're on that portal side. If your current quarterly report showed your unique registrations at Bitcoin Well grew by more than 4,800 in Q3 to a total of 25,000 as of September this year. So that right there is showing a growth of 23% just from June to this year to now. And then what was it, like 127% increase from December 31st of last year till now. So, earlier this month, the company, you guys had over 27,000 unique registrations. So those are huge jumps. And that's showing that this asset class is definitely here to stay. And, what's your consensus around all of this?
Yeah, I think the people want to buy Bitcoin at unprecedented levels. And as a result, it's a little bit funny. Like, we have a joke internally here where we can spend 10 times the marketing dollar and get 10% of the value during a bear market when no one's listening. It's like you're shouting into the void. And now I whisper into a vent in my office, and it's like, customers flood in. The best marketing for our business is, frankly, number go up. And lucky for us, Bitcoin is programmed to have number go up. But only because it's comparing it to the dollar, which is programmed to have number go down in an inflationary period. We're seeing customers more than ever. We're seeing high net worth individuals come to want to buy Bitcoin in, for them, smaller transactions, a couple $100,000 up to $1 million. This is compared to 4 years ago, where we had high net worth individuals wanting to spend tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars. People are realizing that Bitcoin is a safe haven to store your wealth, especially wealth and savings that you need for over the long term. Personally, I think Bitcoin is a bad place to put money that you want in the short term. If you need money in the next 6 months, Bitcoin is too volatile. It's probably going to go up over the next 6 months, but there's still a risk there. But if you need money over the next 6 years, over the next 60 years, if you're looking to create some sort of inheritance generational planning, frankly, I think that Bitcoin has an opportunity to replace, assets like gold and even real estate as part of that inheritance kind of legacy leaving path, which is crazy. And I think that it will only continue to get bigger and larger. Once the $100,000 psychological barrier is broken, everyone's eyes are going to be on $1 million. And just like $100,000 seemed crazy 5 years ago, $1 million will seem less crazy with each year that passes.
And Michael, you're on the front end of that. So what do you think about all that?
I totally agree. And one question I actually want to ask Adam, because it goes back into the point we were talking about the banking system, is with that large influx of new users just in September, how long did it take for them to get set up and their accounts to get set up?
Yeah, so we're quite proud of our platform. It takes about 30 seconds for someone to make an account, about 2 minutes for them to be fully capable of buying Bitcoin. And then my fastest transaction time is 11 seconds on the Bitcoin portal. On average, it's about 30 to 45 seconds from sending that e-transfer and getting Bitcoin straight direct back in your personal custody. So like less than 5 minutes from, I have nothing to I now have Bitcoin that I directly control and own anywhere in the world. And that's super cool. You know, I had to make a different account to put, obviously, so we're publicly traded and lots of my personal net worth is in the company. And so I've got that sitting in a brokerage account. And I'm actually, you know, still going through back and forth months later because it's like structured a weird way and there's trust documents and blah, blah, blah. And it's a nightmare. It's a huge pain. But again, we can see that. And there's this thesis of a Cobra effect. Are you guys familiar with the Cobra effect? It's basically, it dates back to when the British government took over in India in the 15 or 1600s. And lots of their citizens were getting eaten by cobras. And so the British government said, we don't want that. We're going to put a bounty on the cobra's head. And that seemed like the right thing to do. And so they did that. And then they had, you know, a small nefarious population farming these cobras, taking advantage of government. And what happened next is the government took off the bounty. And as a result, all the farmers let the cobras loose into the wild, basically making the cobra problem 10 times worse for the next, you know, few centuries. And we can see that as we impose little bits as we kind of try to limit or impose regulation into these free and open markets, they have unintended but catastrophic secondary and tertiary effects that I don't think we can quite grasp. And certainly the government, the bureaucracy cannot grasp. And our monetary system is subject to piles and piles of secondary and tertiary effects that have all been piling up, that we've been manipulating for the last quarter century. And now we are just seeing the cracks get exacerbated. And it's tough when someone can make an account and buy Bitcoin in less than 5 minutes versus a legacy financial product that takes 5 weeks.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to bring up that point because, you know, a couple of years back, there was the big weed stock boom. And I was working for one of the largest banks in Canada. And your typical self-directed account was taking anywhere from 3 to 5 days on a good week to open up. But when we had that weed stock boom, it was 10 to 15 days. So people missed out on thousands and thousands of dollars of gains that could have possibly completed. So again, going back to where this is the future, given that you had clients that were able to open up accounts in 5 minutes is just absolutely insane.
And I think so, and that's still, like, that's true. And when it works, it's great. But even now, we're still seeing certain customers have their money held for no reason or blocked for no reason. Banks are outright just refusing. Yeah, I mean,
I have $3,000 on hold until Christmas Day, and that's starting November 1st in my Coinbase wallet because, you know, it came from one of my bank accounts, and I just didn't Interact e-transfer because it's the only way in Canada you could buy crypto. You can't use a credit card or anything, and now it's just sitting there in limbo in Coinbase in my cash account. Can't buy, can't sell, can't send it back. I got to wait till December 25th.
And how much, like, Bitcoin is up, what, 18% in the last 25 days? Like, what will that be worth? And this is the problem with, I think the problem that stems back to is who has ultimate final say on the money. We call it finality or custody. And, you know, when money's in the banking system, when money's in a custodial Bitcoin platform or a custodial crypto exchanges system, they have final say. And it doesn't matter your logic. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. They get to choose what your finances become. And when you hold Bitcoin in a Bitcoin wallet that you own and control yourself, you are in control. Nobody gets to tell you. If the government says that Bitcoin's illegal, fine, I'm leaving. I'm taking my Bitcoin that I have in my personal wallet and I'm leaving. Your TFSA can't do that. Your RSP can't do that. Your Canadian dollar bank account can't do that. Nothing can do that other than a Bitcoin wallet. And that power, that freedom is what Bitcoin's all about. It's monetary freedom like we have never seen before. Throughout the history of time, everything else has been physical and difficult to move. Even back to the gold standard, it was difficult to move your money somewhere else. And we finally have that financial freedom and the freedom to transact thanks to Bitcoin, the Bitcoin protocol, that we've never, ever experienced before.
And that's very true. I mean, there's so many more corporations that and people, individual. I mean, they hold a lot of, you know, emotionally and financial hold to their Bitcoin or their crypto or whatever it is. You know, this asset came in like a wrecking ball, and even corporations, like look at MicroStrategy. This is a company that has become a bit of a tracking stock, continues its incredible run as the company sells more debt and equity to buy more Bitcoin. And so just this past Monday, the company announced it had acquired over 51,000 Bitcoin for approximately $4.6 billion at an average price of 88,000. So this company is in 1 year, let's look at this. This company, we didn't even know really much about this company. In 1 year, this company is up sevenfold in its 1 month. It's up 73% in 1 month. So, Michael, you know about this company. What can you tell me as a coin holder? Are you tracking MicroStrategy as well?
I am. I think it makes total sense to track these large companies like MicroStrategy and any other corporation, or even now countries I was reading about last night in preparation for this call, that are, again, selling off a lot of their equities, bonds, whatever they may have, to dump into their crypto portfolio. El Salvador is one of the largest crypto holders as a country, and has brought them, I could fairly say, from a third world country to a first world country now, just based on their holding of cryptocurrency. And it's really important to watch these big players out there, like the BlackRocks as well, that are buying large amounts of Bitcoin and other altcoins, as well as they're rallying, for what's going to be coming in the future, especially when the Trump administration comes into play in January. So I think for anybody that's understanding on what they should buy or what's the future, I always look for these big companies, because if the big banks are getting into it, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley and whatnot, these big companies like MicroStrategy, BlackRock, whoever it may be, it only makes sense that these coins are definitely be going up, and the market's going to be going up as well. And we have to understand as well, as actually we attended a conference this past weekend, and we had some crypto strategists talking. There's only 6% of crypto, or 6% of the world actually holds cryptocurrency. So whether people are watching and they see that, Bitcoin's rallying to almost $100,000, is it too late to get in? Adam made a phenomenal point that the beauty of it is a fractional purchase. So you could buy $1 worth of Bitcoin, you could buy $5, whereas in the stock market, you can't. You have to buy whatever the stock is trading at. So the beauty of this is that it's not too late to get in. And again, 6% of the world is currently holding cryptocurrency. So I think it's a great time to still get in.
Yeah. Do you think then that, the ultimate question is, will more non-coin holders now press that go button, or are they going to be, one of the many flaws that I have, but I always think everything's still too expensive. So am I going to still wait and see if that's going to come back down to, $40,000 to $30,000 to $50,000, or, will there be people that take the risk and say, I'm pressing go now, I'm going to do this?
I feel you should cost average. Sorry. I'll just leave a real quick point. I think the beauty of this is just like, again, when I was selling mutual funds and ETFs, is always cost averaging. Don't throw it all in there right now. I was talking with an investor last night, even about the S&P 500, and he's like, should I buy? I'm like, I think maybe it's a little bit high right now. Everything goes in peaks and troughs. So let's say you have $100,000 you want to throw in there, throw in $25K right now. See what happens, throw another $25K. And again, that's the beauty of Bitcoin, is you could purchase it fractionally. So have maybe a payment plan set up. Maybe, okay, once a week, I want to buy X amount of dollars on this date at this time.
I think that's 100% the strategy. Understanding that Bitcoin is not an investment, but it's a savings tool. And I think that with that dollar cost average strategy of just relentless, disciplined contributions to a Bitcoin wallet, there's literally 0 people on planet Earth that have been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin for more than 2 weeks that haven't increased their purchasing power. And that only gets truer and more real the further back. One of our Bitcoin ATM hosts told me a story earlier this summer. We were catching up, and he said that he's taken his $200 a month rent from us, kept it in Bitcoin, locked it away, and it's only ever sat in Bitcoin. Now, $200 a month for any kind of business that gets lost in the treasury, that gets dumped into cleaning supplies and whatever. That religious and disciplined kind of separation of those funds into a Bitcoin wallet. He mentioned, this is back in the summer, so it's even higher now, but he's mentioned that that's amassed to over $20,000 in purchasing power, which he said is enough to start kind of as a down payment to start a new or another restaurant. So that small payment that otherwise gets lost in the bookkeeping has amassed to such great purchasing power that he can start put a down payment in and then supplement it with debt to open up and double his business. This is the power of Bitcoin, and this is the power of not looking at it like an investment, is looking at it like savings. to really see how the future of your business or the future of your lifestyle can be made better by a regimented contribution to a Bitcoin savings plan. Over the next quarter century, nothing will perform better than you taking and controlling Bitcoin in small numbers. Even at bitcoinwall.com, we give away 50 cents worth of Bitcoin when you sign up, just to give you a taste, just so you can start understanding and receiving. We call it getting off zero, understanding that people, they need to have some skin in the game, and we want to give them that taste to do that. And we've seen great success with that. We see people get 50 cents and then want to buy $50 and then $500 and then $5,000. And by the time they know it, that $5,000 that they've purchased in Bitcoin is now worth 10, 15, 20,000. And they're like, holy smokes, I can renovate my house. I have a down payment for a house. I can buy a car. I can fix my car. And it affords a lifestyle that is frankly unattainable in our existing financial system without Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think this is where you really have to give this asset some legitimacy. I mean, I think it has established credibility as a store of value, and here's why. I mean, the genius with the asset that many assets don't carry is that it has the powerhouse wheel trying to mine the coins and cause FOMO around it as well. So each incremental coin gets harder and harder and more expensive to mine, with farmers saying, that's it, we're going to stop mining at 21 billion. So then you enter that FOMO effect. So people and marketers and markets, they're believing that, and therefore the demand over denomination, that takes over effect. So if you think about the incremental supply, Bitcoin is less than the supply of incremental gold. That's, there's this big controversy right now with the conversations around, is gold going to go down? Is Bitcoin going to go up? Which one's better to buy right now? And so it's even way less than the supply of incremental dollars. So Adam, what's your take? Am I valid in this, or am I completely out to lunch?
No, you're bang on. I think that gold can still rise in this environment. It'll just rise less quickly than it would have because there's a new kid in town. There's a better asset that merits our money, and new often means riskier for some people who can't quite stomach the transition. I mean, what comes to mind is the Blockbuster mentality of people will always rent VHS and thank you very much. And there is a concept that money always has to be physical and thank you very much. But as you mentioned, that mining protocol is what ties this digital asset to the real world in a way that we've never seen before. This proof of work concept is something so revolutionary that Satoshi envisioned and brought in that perfectly ties, what gives anything value is the efforts required to produce it. And tying that to energy is the perfect rail. I mean, we've seen, it's crazy to say this, but the market cap of Bitcoin is now more valuable than the entire Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar as a whole is less valuable than a 15-year-old decentralized cryptocurrency tied to energy. As crazy as that is to say, it is not surprising, given that our Canadian dollar is literally tied to the promises of Justin Trudeau and his ability to defend, the country. And I think that is, when you think about how insane it is that we save in a money form that is inflationary and printed at a whim, based on, whatever the existing administration decides to say or do, that's wild. And it will be wild. I know my kids are going to grow up as Bitcoin natives. They're going to grow up laughing at the fact that I used dollars at one point. How could you trust that would be good? The same way that we laugh at, other ancient technologies. I think that Bitcoin is as revolutionary as the printing press in decentralizing its ability and its access to information, or in Bitcoin's case, its access to money. And I think that the writing's on the wall.
Michael, what brought you into Bitcoin then?
What brought me into it is, again, going back to the banking structure. That's just what blew me away, again, working in the banking system for over 5 years and understanding the process. That's just what took me into this. That, and also looking for new investment opportunities. And again, trying to adapt to the ever-growing technology in the world, and just understanding that, I'm a bit of a tech nerd. And again, this might be something that's very new to people. And it might not take off for maybe another generation or so, because again, you still have those old adapters that are still very real estate focused, very stock market focused, and they might never adapt to this. But like Adam said, his kids are going to be, Bitcoin crypto natives, and I think that's the same for mine. It's just going to be what they're grown into and what they understand. I look at it the same as just social media. There's still many 55 plus year olds out there that don't have social media. They didn't grow up with it, they didn't understand it, don't care to adapt. So I feel the same with this, is that once that generation sort of phases out, in the sense that, these new adapters right from the age they turn 18 and they get their first crypto wallet, it's just going to be, something new to them. It's not going to be foreign anymore. It's just going to be ingrained in society.
So they don't have to be 18. My 2-year-old son has a Bitcoin wallet that I set up for him, and that I regularly deposit Bitcoin in there for him. The same way you'd contribute to an RESP or some other saving scheme for your children. Like there's a wallet with my son's name on it. Both my daughters and my older son as well. They've got Bitcoin wallets, and you don't have to be 18. There's no one designating how old you can or cannot be. There's no registration required. It is just there and available to anyone who wants it. And that is just so empowering and amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this is an asset class that has wide adoption across, not just individuals, but institutional investors as well. I mean, its current value is sitting, 131,000 Canadian, so just under the 100K mark American. And Adam, I mean, your company too is also helping move that needle to decentralize the asset. And there's regulators that want to finally collaborate rather than battle. And it's been, the world's most powerful administration is running the bullheads behind it, and they want to get off their heels and onto their toes with this. So, Michael, are you buying more then? Are you holding tight? What's your move right now? You mentioned that maybe you're not going to quite yet, but what's your long-term move here?
Yeah, my long-term move is currently for my portfolio between Bitcoin and the other altcoins that I have. I'm going to be holding strong because I think this is just the start. So I don't recommend anybody selling, not financial advice, but that's just my personal advice. I was one of those early adopters that had it at 11,000 and 18,000, one whole coin. And the first time I had FOMO and I sold it right away. So this time I've learned my lesson as I'm a bit older and smarter now. And going into it, I'm a huge fan of cost averaging and a big advocate of cost averaging. So I will continue to keep investing into it, keep putting money into it. Because I think, again, there's just still so much growth for this. Like I said, 6% of the world holds cryptocurrency. We're 8 billion people. So the fact that there's so many parts of the world that haven't adopted this yet, so many different age groups in the world that haven't adopted this yet, I still think we're, far away from seeing the true top of what can happen with this new digital currency.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, now you touched a little bit that you thought this was predictable. So this surge, was it predicated on hype and on internet personalities and big promises? I mean, Trump is ultimately the perfect mascot for the crypto industry and all these things. And the industry couldn't have really created a better mascot for this industry. So now he's going to be president. What's your thoughts? Do you think, honestly, that whatever he's saying he's going to do with Bitcoin, do you think it will come to fruition?
I think the U.S. government printing dollars to buy Bitcoin is their only shot at having a chance to pay off the debt. I think earlier this year we just crossed the U.S. just crossed $35 trillion in debt, and now it's over 36 less than a year later. This debt's going to continue to compound from a U.S. Treasury perspective. The only hope that you have is to print dollars before somebody else prints dollars to buy the scarce asset. Thought about it a little bit differently. We've got an asset that's in decline in the US dollar or the Canadian dollar, where they can print, and then we have a scarce asset where no one can print. Why wouldn't you trade one for the other? And El Salvador, who doesn't have the option to print, but has been slowly and responsively buying Bitcoin, has proven to every other country, every other nation state, that holding Bitcoin is a positive for governments. If you've got the biggest printer in the world, frankly, you run the risk of some other printing organization in other countries to print first and get Bitcoin that, you will not have the opportunity to access. Every other asset that the government holds can be duplicated or will be made obsolete or requires maintenance, etc. Bitcoin does not. And so I do believe that Trump has the right people in his ears to buy Bitcoin. I do believe that there will be Bitcoin allocation to the US Treasury as a reserve asset. I hope that Alberta, I hope that other provinces in Canada, and I hope that eventually Canada will smarten up and try to at least show us the citizens that they want to protect the Canadian dollar, that they want Canada to be an abundant and prosperous nation. I think that Alberta, frankly, is ripe for it. I've been calling on our Premier, Danielle Smith, to add Bitcoin to the Alberta Treasury for 2 years now. I think it's irresponsible of any politician not to have Bitcoin on their respective treasury. And I think that Trump is going to probably be one of the first ones, unless a smaller nation or jurisdiction sees the writing on the wall and can front run it.
Absolutely. And, Michael, maybe you can jump in here on this, but, once Trump is actually in there, January, whatever it is, people are going to actually start asking, he's talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So, people will actually start really asking, what does that look like? What's the function of that reserve? And can he get that through Congress? So will there be a Trump crypto regulations? Do you see his words, do you think they're actually going to help? From your point of view, Michael, what do you see?
Yeah, I think they will help. You look at taking a stock perspective. Congress has definitely a great portfolio, and everybody loves money. They want to make great money, and they want to be the first nation to definitely adopt this. And I compare this to Space Force. I think that was like his biggest, crazy initiative, if you want to call it that, for his last term. So I feel like as much as he focused on that, he's really going to be going for a big technology push this time. And I think crypto is a huge aspect of that. Again, looking at who's brought into his advisory, Elon Musk being at the forefront there with his Department of Government Efficiency. I think that was a bit of a joke with the whole Doge is what it spells out. And we saw a huge run with that. But I think Congress will be on board. I feel like there's going to be a bit of a pushback at first, of course, but I think inevitably towards the end of his term, we will see this become a staple and a standard in the U.S. And again, that powerhouse country of the world, wanting to be the first on the map to stabilize this and create that reserve, and again, be the pioneers for it. Because it's look at this again, even compared to something back in the 60s and 70s, is the race to the moon. Right now, it's the race to who's going to be the biggest cryptocurrency holder and the cryptocurrency powerhouse of the world. If they don't do it, somebody else will. China, Russia, the whole BRICS nation now coming together. So I feel like that's the next. It's the digital war that's going on right now, and he definitely wants to win it.
Okay, so lastly, let's finish off. Do you both have any larger economic concerns about the great crypto surge then?
I think, yes. My concern would be around the centralization of Bitcoin. I think that as bullish as it is and as short-term beneficial as it would be for governments and the BlackRocks and the big hedge funds to buy Bitcoin, I ultimately think that Bitcoin is designed as a tool to preserve the individual's rights, financial freedoms, and ultimately value. We do run the risk of nations centralizing Bitcoin. There is no other crypto asset worth your time, in my opinion. And I think that if we see this hyper scarce supply get into the wrong hands, we will be subject to certain market manipulations or otherwise. That said, I think that Bitcoin really, it affords you a life that you probably thought you would never be able to achieve in its super savings power. But it also forces you to change on an internal level. It forces you to elongate your time preference, start thinking about the future in more ways. And so as much as the economic path may be uncertain, I do think that Bitcoin will continue to experience its 4-year epoch cycles. I think that Bitcoin, like every asset, will experience volatility. But as more people, as more individuals adopt Bitcoin, the world will change for the better, because Bitcoin perfectly aligns your incentive to think about the future in such a way that we are incapable of doing right now due to the dollar and the horrific financial fiat system that exists. And so with more individuals thinking about the future, more individuals thinking about how to raise the next generation, what types of businesses are needed, businesses becoming more mission focused, I think that's a huge positive. And I think that makes the world a better place, because we've got the ability to think about the future in a way that hasn't been afforded to us in the past, which is very, very bullish and optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. My only concern and roadblock that I see, especially for a nation like Canada, is just like anything else out there, there's always going to be that criminal standpoint to it, which again is not protected by anybody. Look at, again, TD, money laundering, over $3 billion. But I feel like Canada and maybe our current government is going to continue to keep putting that big push towards that. And I feel like, as not looking as the whole world right now, just looking as a nation, is going to slow down our growth, because there's just so many regulations when it comes to the banking and the financial sector. Like I said, look at myself personally right now, sent myself from a top 5 bank $3,000 via Interact e-transfer, and it's on hold until Christmas Day, and I'm missing out on purchasing right now. So I just feel like that's going to be the real roadblock and hurdle, is that they're just going to keep pushing the whole criminal aspect to it, especially what happened with TD right now. We're seeing it with just basic transactions. If you go to a bank right now and you get a bank draft, which used to be considered cash back in the day, it's going on hold for 5 to 10 business days, depending on how much it is and where it's coming from. And I just feel like that's going to be, holding us back from where other countries are going to be pushing forward in this growth, like the US, like China, like many other powerhouses in the world. So that's my only fear, the roadblock right now. I think it's, like Adam said, it's inevitable. It's going to become the future. I'm still very bullish on it, but I think just as a nation, that's where our hurdle and our excuse to not adapt this a lot faster is going to come into play.
And that's why, conversations like this, we are arming ourselves with knowledge. So as always, these conversations are the opinions of our own with vested interest in particular assets and companies. So always be sure you speak with your financial advisor and know your own risk tolerance. Thank you both for your time. Adam O'Brien is founder and CEO of Bitcoin Well, and Michael Succurro is CEO of Fluent Capital Management. I'm Lyndsay Malchuk. We'll see you next time.